Hey y'all, hi! It's time for another episode of What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, even though I feel like it hasn't been that long since the last one. But I think maybe it's been longer than I feel like it's been, because since I filmed the last What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, I've moved across the country, Joe and I have moved into a new space, and as you can see, I'm in the middle of building a new YouTube background. Update on the paint. I haven't totally decided yet, but because I had more paint in the sample pots and because I'm leaning towards dead salmon, I painted over the other paint swatches with dead salmon. So we've kind of moved into the next phase of decision making. I think that in a vacuum, Sulking Room Pink is my favorite for the lighting here. It's the one that gave me the strongest emotional reaction. But I really think that those of you who are worried that that pink color would affect the perception of makeup are potentially correct. And because a lot of what I do on this channel is to review makeup and show products, and I pride myself on trying to get really accurate color readings with our lights and with our camera, I didn't want to set myself up for a battle with the background color all the time whenever I'm showing makeup on camera. So I think it's going to be dead salmon, but I'm glad that I'm getting this footage with the rug in place and a bigger swatch on the wall that will help me make absolutely positively sure that I want to invest in a full gallon of this color. Also, there is going to be more stuff in the background. Many of you have requested plants. There will be plants. Many of you have requested books. Love you so much. There will be books, and I am going to bring that beautiful lamp back. I think it's going to work, but let me know what you think. Side note, the name dead salmon apparently does not refer to a deceased fish, but rather to kind of like a flat or dead finish, or kind of like flat or dead tone and undertone in a salmon-colored paint that the makers of Farrow and Ball paint saw somewhere in like an ancient castle somewhere. They were like, that's kind of a dead salmon as opposed to a more vibrant salmon color. And so they named their paint dead salmon. Of course, it's kind of cheeky because nobody can say the phrase dead salmon without thinking of a deceased fish, but that is what they claim. Maybe that will soothe those of you whose primary objection to the color was the name. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome, and I can't believe you just sat through all of that talk about paint, having just clicked on this video, not knowing anything about me and not ever having been here before. But if you did, then thank you and welcome. I am named Hannah. Did I say that? My name is Hannah. This is a beauty channel primarily. I do some makeup reviews. I also like doing makeup looks with my existing collection of makeup. I often find that all the things I'm tempted to buy, if I'm really honest, they would be redundant for me because I have a beautiful makeup collection and I can pretty much do everything that I want to do on my face with what I already have. And along those same lines, instead of a monthly favorites video, I filmed this video, What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, in which I talk about sources of real joy in my life. As much as I love makeup and as fun as it is, and as much as I really enjoy telling you about the makeup I've tried that has worked well for me and the makeup I've tried that hasn't worked well, I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the sources of real, robust joy in my life are often not products. And to that end, I bring you What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, which is what this video is going to be. If you enjoy this and you're not subscribed, then please subscribe. And now let's go ahead and get into the meat of the video. I have a pretty edited list this time. I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet. LOL, we know how that always goes, but I really am going to try. And the first one is maybe the thing that I feel like is actually currently, like this week, the primary one. This is the one that is really giving me juice this week, and therefore the one that I'm the most excited to share. And it's something that I've titled Serving Looks in the Home. For the past, let's say 3 months. What is it right now? April? End of April? Yes, 3 months. So February, March, and April. For the past 3 months, I have been either preparing to move across the country, which entailed flying to our new location, doing a house hunt. That was a long trip. We were living out of a suitcase, flying back, and then starting to pack everything up. So either preparing to move across the country, moving across the country, which entailed having sent things in boxes with the movers, living out of a suitcase suitcase in Los Angeles, flying here, living out of a suitcase in an empty house for a week before our stuff arrived, or unpacking in this new place and being kind of like half in, half out of boxes, doing a lot of physical work, like moving stuff, breaking a sweat, going up and down the stairs, putting together furniture, collapsing boxes. I have really been living that life in one form or another for 3 months, a full quarter of the year. And let me tell you, my level of sartorial elegance has taken a nosedive, or rather took a nosedive during that time. And it was totally fine. It was understandable. How I looked in my clothes was, for almost every day over the past 3 months, not very important to me or anyone around me. I wanted to be comfortable, I wanted to be functional, and I wanted to be able to get ready quickly. For a lot of that time, I couldn't access my clothes. Everything's been in boxes for much of the time, or preparing to go into boxes, or just emerging from boxes and not really quite ready to be back in rotation yet. Here, we're still trying to figure out where we're going to store our clothing. I would say that my closet is pretty much only half unpacked. What I'm trying to say is that by necessity, in a way that doesn't necessarily disappoint me and isn't a failing of anyone's, I have just taken a long break, a really long break from serving Luke's, right? Like just a long break from ever really putting myself together and being like, I feel fierce, I feel empowered by my silhouette or the choices that I've made with color. And that particular kind of empowerment is adding to my quality of life. It's just been a long time since I did that. And I would say this week, even though my closet is still half packed and we're still trying to figure out where everything's going to go, at some point this week, maybe 5 or 6 days ago, a switch flipped and I was just like, I think I'll make a bit of an effort. It doesn't matter if I'm not going to be leaving the house or if I'm not filming. I want to make a bit of an effort. I want to put myself together a little bit every day. I carved out enough space in the chaos of unpacking to be able to serve looks. Because it's been so long, it has felt amazing. It's like going a really long time without eating a food that you love, so long that you forget how good it is. And then the first time you take a bite of it again after that long break, that's the sweetest bite. That is how it's felt. I have just been swanning around the house, editing, making lunch, just doing like in the house things, swanning around the house in my outfits every day, even if it's simple stuff like a bodysuit and sweatpants. I just feel like there's a bodysuit and sweatpants and then there's a bodysuit and sweatpants. Or rather, there's sweatpants and then there's sweatpants, right? I feel like even though some of my looks that I've been serving in the home have been casual, I've gone from just throwing on the most comfortable sweatpants with a slouchy sweatshirt and not caring that I look like I'm in my pajamas and not caring that I'm swallowed in fabric from head to toe, which is what I was doing. I've gone from that to being like, I'm going to wear sweatpants, but I'm going to wear my cutest sweatpants. I'm going to wear a bodysuit with them. And so I just feel myself. I feel more dancerly. I feel more in my body. And it has really, really brought me alive. It's really cheering me up. Because I film this video regularly, every once in a while I have a feeling, especially when I get a feeling from something like this that doesn't require making a purchase. It's just like a lifestyle shift, and it's something that I can recommend that you do without recommending that you buy anything. That's the kind of thing that I love to include in what's cheering me up right now. So when something like that in my life starts giving me a certain feeling, it's like a little light bulb lights up and I'm like, it's time for another episode of What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. I've talked about things like this before. I've probably mentioned this exact thing in different words and under different circumstances before. And this is just a reminder to me, and by extension, a reminder to you, of the power of taking a little bit of time to put yourself together. It's like a really specific manifestation of what I say in my outro every time. Make time to take extra good care of yourself, because it so often makes you a more effective version of yourself. And by that, I mean really a happier version of yourself, a version of yourself that feels better when you are doing whatever it is that you really care the most about doing. Fashion sometimes gets short shrift. People think that it's shallow, but it has such such transformative power, especially if you are someone who is sensitive to color and texture and silhouette. And instead of letting your sensitivity to those things make you a victim of marketing and make you want to just scroll Instagram all day and buy things on the internet, you can take that sensitivity and use it as the superpower that it is to make yourself feel great by taking time to indulge in the use of what you already own, wearing of the things, and enjoying of the things that you already own. I've just been sharply reminded of that lately. I'm so happy to be back in that space, even though I totally understand why I haven't been doing that for so many months now. And even though I understand why it's cheering me up so much, it kind of surprises me how much it's adding to my quality of life. Okay. Item number 2 on the list. And this is one for which I have actually purchased a couple of things, but you don't have to purchase things to put this one into action either. I'm just calling it the umbrella category of working with my hands on projects that don't involve digital media or interactions with screens in any way. And for me, this has taken 2 really specific forms. One of them is that I've started using a paper planner instead of Google calendars, to-do lists on my phone, or really just to-do lists in Word documents, which is what I've been doing for years. I just open a Word document every morning and type my to-do list into it. It just feels so messy. It's never really worked for me. And I've felt increasingly at sea in terms of organization and scheduling and planning as the years have gone on. So this year I decided to try getting a paper planner. I really went all in, and you don't have to go all in and buy the glamorous zipper pouch designer fabric planner that I bought. I will link the one that I got below. But paper planners come in all shapes and sizes and all price points. But the fact that I chose a really beautiful one and that I really, really love it as a book and as art supplies has made a huge difference for me. And the other thing that's great about this one for me is that it has a page for every day of the year. So every morning, now that I'm using this planner, I get up and I go and sit down at my desk and I open my planner to the day. I write with markers and fountain pens and pencils, and I have some stamps and stickers. I fill the page with a colorful, creative, meandering to-do list and schedule. I'll write things in their proper time slots. If I have a meeting, I'll put it in the time slot and fix it in my brain that it's happening at that time. I'll write a list of the things I absolutely have to do that day, and then I'll plug them into the hourly calendar that's on the page. And then I'll write a list of things that I don't want to forget about, things I've been thinking about, kind of optional tasks for the day. And I often end up writing down snatches of books that I've read or thoughts that I've had. I have a little place where I make note of the weather if I feel like it's relevant. Little reminders to myself. Because it's physical and tactile and creative, it helps me ground myself in the day so much better than typing words into a Word document on my computer. One of the greatest things about it, if not the greatest thing about it, is that I'm not looking at a screen first thing in the morning. So I wake up, I get my little half cup of coffee, I sit down and I work in my planner, and that's the first thing that I do. I don't look at my phone, I don't look at my computer until after I've spent time with my planner. I feel much more in touch with myself. I feel like I'm being productive. More productive. I don't know. I'm trying to reject hustle culture and the obsession with optimization and a certain kind of productivity. So I don't even like the language of it's helping me be more productive. But I feel like what it's doing actually is taking down the panic that I often have when I'm plagued by these never-ending digital to-do lists that just keep rolling over and rolling over. Because every day is just one day. It's just one page. The day has a beginning and an ending. And when I'm sitting down with the page in my body and I know what I have capacity for and being realistic, I'm able to write the list of things that I want to accomplish that day that I feel like I probably can. And I'm usually right. And then I go through the day and I check off the things that I said that I was going to do that day. Sometimes it's just 2 things. Sometimes I'll be my absolutely necessary tasks for the day, the things that I cannot fail to accomplish, are walk on the treadmill and film a video. And then everything else goes under the optional tasks. And that's if I feel like walking on the treadmill and filming a video, for some reason, because of the day that I'm having or the week that I'm having, those two things are going to be hard for me that day. I make them the only two tasks that I'm actually truly required to do. And I make that decision that morning. Today, I was feeling more ambitious. So there are 4 things on my absolutely must-do list. And I must say, this is the 4th one. I've already done 3 of them, and filming this video is the 4th one. I've actually accomplished something that is on my optional to-do list for today. So I'm looking at it, I'm looking at today's page, and I'm feeling like I've got this. I feel like it's friendly. I'm being friendly to myself with this kind of planning. I'm working with myself instead of being hard on myself and working against myself. And I'm absolutely not getting less done than I was before. I'm just organized. I'm probably actually doing exactly the same number of tasks every day and being productive at like the same rate that I was before. I just don't feel that sense of panic, like time slipping away from me and everything's always slipping away from me. I feel more mindful, more grounded in the present, just more okay with the actual pace of life. So having a paper planner, that could be just one thing in and of itself, because I've been talking about it actually in kind of a specific way. But under the larger umbrella of doing things with my hands that aren't digital, there's another thing that is kind of different. And it's something that I've just started and I don't really know how it's going to go yet. So I'll report back. I have started rug tufting. I didn't realize that this was a big fad. I needed to acquire a couple of rugs in this house, and I love rugs. So I've actually been doing kind of a lot of research about rugs because I don't want to acquire any rugs here that we're not going to love for a really long time. I want them to be good ones, but we can't afford to like buy a bunch of big rugs, like rugs for all of the house, because really good rugs are expensive. So I've just been trying to make smart decisions about rugs, really think about what kind of rug I want in each of the couple of spaces that we are buying rugs for. It's just been a very rug-heavy, rug-obsessed time over here, okay? And in the process of researching rugs, I learned that rug tufting, there's been a boom during the pandemic in rug tufting as a hobby. It's making a tufted rug with a machine that it's like a gun-shaped sewing machine. A sewing machine that has a needle that pushes the yarn through the backing and then cuts it so that it sticks out the other side with 2 tufts. So it runs along the back of the fabric, much like a sewing machine, with a big foot and a huge needle and little scissors connected to it. You hold it like that and you push the trigger to get it to run, and then you move it manually up the backing and it tufts through the backing. I started watching videos of people doing it and I was like, it was funny. When I first learned about it, I was like, wow, that seems like something I might want to get into someday when I have more time, when I'm not just freshly moved into a house and only half unpacked and have a million things on my plate. Then I started watching videos and about 30 minutes later, I was like, I need to do this right now. I'm dropping everything. Instead of buying a rug, I'm going to buy a tufting machine and the equipment to start learning to tuft, and I'm going to make my own rugs. The stuff shipped really quickly. It's here, and I just started tufting last night. For the first time, I did some tufting, and there's definitely a learning curve. I have a lot of experience with sewing machines because for a long time, that was how I made my living, sewing clothes. So I think that I might be ahead of the curve a little bit on it because of that history with this kind of work. But actually, my history as a clothing designer and sewer is related to this umbrella category because I was sewing clothes almost every day to make my living all the way up until the beginning of the pandemic. And that started like in 2009. There was over a decade there where I spent a lot of time just in that meditative space, working with my hands, working with fabric, with shape and color. I think that I came to kind of take for granted the fact that that work satisfied something in me that needs to be working with my hands. And because I was doing it for so long, I kind of got weary of it. It became a job for me. Sometimes it was hard. And I really forgot over the years that even when it was hard, it was always providing for me that outlet, that space to just relax and breathe and work with my hands and be myself, my sort of free, alone soul, my raw self, making stuff with my hands. I haven't really gotten to do that since the beginning of the pandemic, since we closed that clothing business. That kind of creative work hasn't really been part of my life. I've been doing creative things, I've been making videos and, cooking and stuff like that, but I haven't really had that other thing where you're like working on a project, materials, making something out of materials. And I think that the hunger for that in me has just been growing and growing and growing, but I haven't had space or time. It hasn't been a situation that's conducive to that. But here in this house, there is space and the situation is conducive to it. So I don't think that now that I'm doing it, and I'm looking back, I'm not surprised that we were only in this house for a couple of weeks before I got a tufting machine and a tufting frame and started making stuff out of materials. And as soon as I started doing it, put the frame together and stretched the fabric over it, I was like, this is what I've been needing. This is what I've been missing. And I apologize to my past self for having been out of touch with the fact that that kind of work with my hands is actually really important to me. It's kind of like going to church is for some people. If I go too long without doing it, I just lose my center. So the combination of my paper planner and starting to tuft, which is, again, something that rationally I shouldn't be doing right now because I'm so busy. But yesterday I just clocked off at 5:30 and I was like, sorry, not sorry, I'm tufting until dinner. And I'm going to do that, I think. And I think that even though it seems like a time suck, it's probably going to make me a better version of myself in the coming months. And I can't wait. Okay, let's talk briefly about media. I'm still just listening to Dusty Stay True. That one album, True to Me by Dusty Stay True. I haven't made a new playlist. I haven't started listening to any new music. Still just fully obsessed with Dusty Stay True. I listen to the entire album at least once a day. So I'm sorry I have nothing new to report there. I have started watching this really interesting Japanese Netflix show. Is an animated show called Kotaro Lives Alone. I think that Netflix produced it in Japan and then they dubbed it and released it to English-speaking audiences very recently. It's about a 4-year-old boy who lives alone in an apartment complex and befriends his neighbors in the apartment complex. It's not really a kid's show. It's not light, but it does have these elements of lightness to it and then these elements of darkness that go into the kinds of life events and the kinds of trauma, especially childhood trauma and family issues that, in spite of how wide-ranging television has become, I feel like these particular issues are rarely covered in any kind of television show. So to see them covered in this format with the kind of tone and the sort of visual energy of the show, it's really intriguing. There's just a lot of crossing of genres and it seems very actually kind of one-dimensional on the surface. And then once you poke through that, you're in the 5th dimension in terms of subject matter and storytelling and how evocative it is. It's really, really interesting. So I've quite been enjoying Kotaro Lives Alone. And if you watch Netflix and this sounds like the kind of thing that you like and you haven't discovered it or you've seen it, but you're just not sure, let me be the first to tell you. It's worth a try, I think. It's a little bit of a slow burn, too. It takes some time to really realize that they're really going to go there. And so there is kind of this sense of mystery and a little bit of a sense of magical realism as well. It's a cool show, and I'm still not quite sure where it's going. So maybe if you watch it, we can find out together. Brief mention, even though I'm a broken record about it, brief mention for the class that I am taking again. The program is called Training a Million Compassionate People. This is the second time that I've taken it. It's an online course taught by a very old friend of mine. She teaches it in 6-week sessions. It's just an hour every Saturday for 6 weeks. I knew that I needed to take it again, but when I was sitting in the first class last Saturday, listening to Julia talk, all I could think was, I am so glad I'm here. I'm so glad I'm here. I didn't know how badly I needed this. Even though I suspected that I needed it, I didn't know how important it was going to be. And I haven't talked about it enough on YouTube. As much as I've talked about it, it's more extraordinary than I've ever been able to communicate. These were the things that I was thinking. So I just have to mention it again. The class that I'm in right now, this session is now closed for admissions because we're off and running, right? So for the next 5 weeks, it's just going to be this class. Then I think there will be a 2-week break, and then the next round will start. But I don't think that it's too soon to sign up for, I guess, what would be June. The next round will start in June. It's an extraordinary experience to take this class. It's so rich with information that it's kind of hard to summarize. One of the things that Julia talks about that I love so much is that we tend to live too much in the mind and not enough in the heart. The class is designed to help participants move into the heart and live more in the heart and awaken the heart. I need that so much. I just feel, when I even just think about that, I get this tremendous sense of relief and calm. And it's hard for me to imagine that that's not true for a lot of you out there too. So if that resonates with you and you're interested in this class, there will be a link to it in the description box down below. But now I'm going to move into talking about the last thing, which, I don't know, this is kind of interesting because it's touching on something that I revisit from time to time, which is my relationship with shopping. So one of the things that's been cheering me up is that it's been such a big change coming to this new place, moving into a different house and starting to set up house. I really love interior design, right? Like wall color, rugs, furniture. I love that stuff. And we've been living in small spaces in LA, a studio apartment in LA, and then with our friends. And, you know, there have been opportunities here and there to make some choices about design, but I haven't really gotten to spread my wings in that realm for a long time. The last time that Joe and I moved into a house that we needed to kind of set up, like we just didn't have stuff. We moved into a house that was bigger, much bigger than the space in which we had been living. So we didn't have a couch and we didn't have any chairs and we didn't have a dining table, you know. The last time that happened was when we moved from Portland to Michigan when I went to graduate school. And that was before my no-buy year. It was really exciting then, as it is now. I feel like, in a way, moving to a new place gives you a chance, gives one a chance to kind of get to know oneself afresh. It's like you're checking in with yourself because it's a sort of starting over. And so you're looking at yourself again, sort of through new eyes or from a fresh place. And you're like, oh, hello. I didn't really realize that you were like this now, or like you've grown in this way, you know? That is really exciting to me. I like that feeling. And when it comes to making decisions about like what rug we're going to get or what color tablecloth we're going to get, those decisions are kind of like an acting out of that rediscovery of the self. And I just love that, right? It's one of the things I love about fashion, that I love about makeup, self-expression, beauty in general, beautiful things. I love all of this stuff. However, when we moved into the house in Ann Arbor before my no-buy year, I still had a pretty troubled relationship with shopping too. I was voraciously spending and shopping as a way of looking away from all the things that made me unhappy, which was just me. Like the ways in which I was making myself unhappy by not dealing with my issues. My genuine love of beauty, interior design, and home furnishings was like interacting with this sort of dark underbelly of my life and making me into an obsessive, endless overspender on things around the home. I was just constantly buying things for the house, trying to make it better and better and better, and filling it with more and more and more stuff to try to get at something. And as I learned during my no-buy year, when you do that, when you keep buying and buying and buying and buying to try to get at something, it's never ending, right? You never get at it. You never get to a place where you're like, I've now purchased stuff to the point where my life has changed and I feel way better and I'm transformed and I have a new identity. It just doesn't work. That was a hard lesson to learn, and it was a very expensive lesson to learn in that house back before my no-buy year in the Ann Arbor house. I spent a lot of money on a lot of crap. And again, it took my whole no-buy year, and then even like the work that I did in the year or two following the no-buy year to unlearn all of the stuff that was making me behave that way back in that first house that I ever got to try to furnish. So we lived in a couple of small apartments in LA. During that time, I did my no-buy year and went on that aforementioned journey. And now I'm getting another chance to settle into an actual house that has a bedroom, and I have my own office. There's a little living room. There's even a little dining room. And we definitely don't have furniture to fill this space. We're having to acquire a couple of key things. It's really exciting. It's one of the things that's making my days thrilling right now in particular. However, it's not that that's on the list, even though that is fun. And one of the things that makes it great is that over the past couple of years, we haven't been spending very much money, right? We were living with our friends. We were saving. We knew we were going to be moving. And so we've been saving for the move. So we've budgeted for these things, right? We knew that we were going to have to buy some pieces of furniture, for example, and we've budgeted for it. So it feels premeditated, well decided on, which is really different from the old frantic, just buying everything, not worrying about how much it's costing, pushing down the panic that I used to do. There are even some things that I have had to buy for myself that aren't even articles of furniture. For example, I didn't have any rain boots, and it poured down rain for like a week after we got here. I do have some boots that are sort of like semi-waterproofed leather, like might be okay in the mud for a little while. But when it's pouring down rain like it was, you need like wellies, you know? And I used to have them when I lived on the East Coast and when I lived in Michigan. But I've lived in LA for years and I haven't needed anything like that. And I didn't have any. So there have been a couple of things like that. I had to get a wool coat because moths ate all of my wool coats in LA. And I have been saving and I have budgeted for some settling into this new space in that way. And so that's just been such a lovely feeling. But the thing that's really cheering me up, the reason that I'm talking about in this video is that it feels so different to be going through this experience of wanting to make the house cozy as my post-no-buy self. And this is really the first time that I've experienced the full extent of like this phase of moving, this phase of life of moving into a house since my no-buy. It feels and looks so different from what it was like before when we moved into the house in Ann Arbor. It's like every day I'm sharply reminded because of that difference of how far I've come. And I think that it's been so long now. It's been 4 years since my no-buy year. I've moved so fully into just living as my post-no-buy self that sometimes I forget how different I am now. That forgetting sometimes tricks me into thinking that it wasn't that big of a deal, or that I didn't really change that much, or maybe I've gone back to how I used to be or something and I just haven't really noticed. But then something like this happens, an incredibly strong example of a total transformation in my approach to these kind of like life-defining, space-shaping decisions, and the marked absence of the old obsession and panic and lying to myself that used to be there. It has made me, it's making me emotional actually talking about it and thinking about it. And it has made me so happy and grateful and made me feel so calm about the whole thing, the whole journey towards a kind of moderation that still allows me to take real passionate joy in the acquisition of beautiful things, but to do it in a way that's healthy for me and that's not endangering my financial future and that's not causing my mental health to deteriorate. I know that it's not going to be like this forever, right? We've budgeted for settling into the house, and I've personally budgeted for a few things, a new coat, rain boots, a couple of new blouses for filming. But I can see the ending point kind of coming down the line, right? I've bought more, and Joe and I have bought more in the past month than we're going to buy next month and the month after that and the month after that. I can see the ending point coming down the line, and I'm kind of excited for it. It's going to, I'm happy that this is happening now, but I'm going to be happy when it's over and when we've made the decisions and we've settled in and I can stop thinking about what I'm going to buy next and thinking about what we need for XYZ corner in the house or XYZ function in the house. I know that if you don't have my history or if you don't relate to some of like the stuff that surrounds my no buy, this might not make sense to you. But to me, the fact that I am actually excited about the end of this time of shopping is mind-boggling. I cannot believe that I'm sitting here before you saying it's going to be nice when we can stop thinking about what we're going to buy next and when I can stop browsing online for things that we need for the house and I can kind of move into a time of austerity, which I think will be like over the summer. I'll just be spending a lot less money and we as a couple will be spending a lot less money, and I'm looking forward to that because I want that sense of sitting back and just living life and appreciating what I have. It's not even to do with saving money, like not spending so much money. It has to do with like the daily existence, the daily experience of just like being happy with the way things are. I'm looking forward to that. And I'm so happy that I can say that. So I hope that that wasn't too abstract. And if you, again, don't have the context of the no buy year, maybe I'll put a couple of videos down below so that you can get caught up and then perhaps the last thing that is cheering me up will make more sense to you. Needless to say, I appreciate you so much for being here. And again, thank you for bearing with me as things get set up in the new space. Let me know what you think about dead salmon. Let me know what's been cheering you up, especially if you have TV recommendations for me based on what you know about what I like, or music recommendations for me. Please join me in serving looks in the home if that's something that you haven't been doing. I really encourage you to try it out. I feel like of all the things that I've talked about today, that's the one that's the most likely to cheer up anyone who is able to try it. A quick reminder here at the end to subscribe to my channel if you aren't yet subscribed. And to those of you who are subscribed, I am so grateful. But no matter what you choose to do, don't forget to take extra good care of yourself today so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.